Today is June 9th, 2024. I have a special guest with me who doesn't want to be camera or named, so we're going to call her Dr. Coco for short. And she's a mental health counselor as well as very informed experientially with healing and health. And the topic for today is, am I able to heal if I've never healed myself? Am I helping people to medicate versus heal? Am I functional in my relationships when I'm walking around angry and controlling? And we're going to tie all that in with how are we relating in life with self, others, whether married, even at work. Because microaggression is real. Negative energy is real. Church hurt is real. Jealousy and envy is real. Refusal to deal is real. And dysregulation is very rampant in 2024. Can you start by helping us with the definition of dysregulation? This is a word that I like to hear you use. I feel so educated when I hear you talk. Go ahead.
So when I think of dysregulated, it's an idea that we like to believe. People will have you believe that we are thinking beings that feel. We're actually feeling beings that think, which means we start at the bottom of our brain and work our way up. When someone is dysregulated, they're stuck in the feeling portion of their brain. And so I'm acting out of my feelings. I'm ready to fight you. I'm ready to hurt you. I'm yelling. I'm screaming because I'm overwhelmed with feelings that I can't access the upper portion of my brain, which causes me to think. So when someone is dysregulated, that means my feelings has taken over and it's driving my being. And it's almost like I've become a reptilian, because that's how reptiles act, right? What separates reptiles and humans is the ability to think, this upper level comprehension. But when I'm not able to access that because the feelings, whether it's sensations from the inside or the outside, have overwhelmed me, and I don't know what to do with them, then at that point, I'm acting out. I'm having a reptilian response. Fight, freeze, fawn. I'm having a reptilian response of just my body is responding. I'm kicking, I'm screaming, I'm biting. Like I'm stuck in a reptilian response versus a rational response.
What was that word you said? Fawn? What is that? You said
Respond.
fight? Oh,
Flight,
respond.
fight, freeze, or fawn. Fawn means actually going along with you, and it's like I'm but I have disassociated to the point that I'm giving you what you want, but I'm here and I won't remember
it. Is it kind of like autopilot?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure the listeners are able to keep tracking with this. I'm loving this. Please continue. So the other question is, do you recommend people as mental health counselors if they have never healed themselves? I know you, Dr. Kessler, who wrote a book about grief. And
where I was going with that is because we didn't get to finish that thought. Dr. Kessler wrote books about grief, 5 stages of grief, went in, it was amazing. Like he did really amazing good work, and it's brought a lot of people to a place. It helps a lot of people. In his own journey, I said he helped a lot of people, but he didn't heal. And he says he realizes really grief is something you live with. There really is, you just realize that you're turning, and it's something that evolves every day. And he said the healing process of grief is actually on finding meaning for your grief.
Okay.
right? And so he said until he went through it and experienced it and was on his own healing journey, he couldn't come up with finding meaning. And so now he's wrote a whole nother book that's about really want to deal with grief. You got to put your grief somewhere. You got to let your grief have meaning. And then that jump starts your healing process. But he says he would have never known this had he not gone through the loss of his own child.
Right. So can we get an example of finding meaning for grief? Is it kind of like, well, I'm going to let you.
So finding meaning for grief. You know, a lot of parents will say they start a foundation for a kid that's passed away.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
I'm doing something with my grief. Or an individual, you can say as an individual, if it's not a foundation, it's, oh, I had a parent that was really into doing flowers. So now I garden, and every time I walk into that garden, I see the life. I've given meaning to my grief with my parent.
Gotcha.
Right? And so those are the things that he talks about. And so one of the things it says is, one of the things you mentioned earlier, is you really talked about how in Genesis 1, there's how we bear fruit.
But seed yielding of its own kind.
You want to talk about that for a minute?
So what I've learned is no matter what, we're created in the image of God. And however we are distorted from that image, we're going to produce that same seed. When in life we are subjected to whatever that transforms us from this innocent being to having to face issues in life, whether a death, whether a rape, whether some harm, whether bullying, whether jealousy, whether envy, whatever it is that takes us from this innocence that we're born with, we then reproduce that same energy. We teach from a place of hurt. We minister from a place of where we're healed, our level of healing, our level of understanding. We can only give what we have. Dr. Kessler had a thing about grief, but never experienced it. So the book could only reach some people and take people so far, because there was no healing or understanding this, because it never hit home. When things hit home, then we can deliver a more powerful ministry, a more powerful revelation, a more powerful understanding of that thing. And if we're never willing to bear our own cross, our own hurt, and heal from that space, we can't teach anybody outside of just what he said, what they said, what she said. I even look at relationships, and I talk a lot about relationships, and I look at anger, that of hurt in early relationships, because I was harmed by some females at a young age. I never knew that this what was going on with me in my latter years, but as I went through my healing and it was brought to light, hey, do you realize this happened to you early on, and this is why you're acting out in your relationships, and things are not able to be firm, or you attract a certain type of companion or whatever. And once I received healing from that, and I had to, and the other path for that is, am I willing to let that go? Am I let it go in the sense of, now, because a lot of people want to say let go and move on, but how do you let go and move on? Stop remembering. Catch yourself when you're triggered, and say, I'm not going to react in that, because I realize that's reacting and hurt. And even if you do, correct it. Even if it's with somebody you're with at the time, make the correction right there, so that you're consciously saying, I am not going to let this rule me anymore. Even if I am not able to catch it in the moment, I'm dysregulated in the moment, I can still stop at whatever and apologize and move forward and be a better example than I was, even if it's one step. Success is measured in steps. I did something better this time than I did before. So that's the process of letting go. Of course, forgive. Forgive means not to wish evil upon. And sometimes we don't realize we're wishing evil upon ourselves or others when we keep reminding ourselves, remembering, attaching ourselves to that negativity, to that hurt, to that harm, to that issue. So in forgiving self, you have to let go of these thoughts, memories, stop reliving it because you're hurting yourself. You're wishing bad on yourself even though you don't even recognize it by reliving these memories. So new experiences are necessary, and being vulnerable enough to have new experiences is necessary for you to move on, for you to live. And this is an exacerbated example of being able to minister from a place of being healed in a certain area, of going through the steps of being better, of I can help someone else heal because I've healed in this area. And we all are growing in different areas. And I think the most mature thing anybody can recognize about themselves is that they don't know everything. They know a little bit of something, but they don't know everything. And God is the ultimate teacher, the ultimate source of wisdom, of knowledge that can help us in any and every area of our lives. But we have to be careful of how we inform ourselves as we form our minds around this knowledge that we consume through social media, through television, through whatever sources that we receive, even family that may have not healed. I'm a tag. No, no, it's not fair. She says no. Keep going. So, I look at a couple. Let me talk about myself. So, I've been in relationships with an angry and controlling counterpart, and when getting to the root of the issue, there was hurt that this person experienced at an early age. So to prevent from being hurt, there was always control and manipulation in play that tried to prevent hurt and harm from coming in their eyes. To be late was hurtful for this person, no matter how much they were late. To come up short on your word, not to not keep your word, but not to be able to fulfill every part of some obligation, no matter how slight it was a trigger for this person. And I realized that if you're not willing to see yourself as you are known, you can't heal from these areas. You're going to keep spewing out the venom in relationship, which is in a lot of ways how narcissists come about, but that's a whole nother story. But even in dealing with those type of individuals, there's some hurt there that control factor just keeps permeating in the relationship. And being a good mate will try and help the person heal, but you can never heal the person or lead them to healing, because at some point people have to do the work themselves. And without doing the work or even owning that there is an issue in this area, how can you get to that level of I am healed, I see what I need to deal with, I see my shortcomings, So, as a mental health professional, can you add some commentary on that?
I think what you're speaking to is more of an idea of this idea of have I really healed from my past, or have I buried the situation alive and learned how to keep doing? So I think what you're talking about when you're giving the example of the relationship that you were in is you're really talking about how a lot of people have learned how to adapt to things that were dysfunctional and things that were hurtful in order to keep doing. And the most important thing in my life is for me to be able to keep doing what I'm doing, versus the most important thing is for me to uncover the things that I have buried alive and heal from them.
Right.
And so in turn, I make the people in my life responsible for keeping up conditions that allow me to feel safe and in control, versus so that I don't have those things come up that I buried alive. Versus the people in my life are actually a mirror and a reflection and helping me heal from them, so that those things aren't buried alive anymore. But there has to be a willingness to be uncomfortable. There has to be a willingness to see myself as not all good, not all bad, knowing that I exist in shades of gray. And for some people to think that I am a part of a problem, they can't hold it. So in turn, I hold that everything else is the problem. And so it becomes really hard. What you're asking is, how am I able to be a healing person or help someone if I'm in a place where it's more important for me to maintain my comfort than it is for me to grow?
Question. With your experience, have you seen more healed people helping people heal, or people who are still in that I want to maintain my comfort area helping people to heal?
I will say one of the things that's really interesting about being in a helping profession is that people get in it because I want to help someone, right? Like I don't want anyone to experience what I've gone through,
Right.
or I want to be for someone something that someone wasn't able to be for me. And so I'm all in, and this is why I'm drawn to this profession, and I'm drawn that way. And that is great. That drives some people, that keeps them going. That gives us some amazing work, some amazing books. It's given us a whole lot of different things.
Right.
The key thing to remember is that you want to make sure that you live a purpose-driven life to help, but you also recognize that in my helping, there is a chance that my own stuff that you said I buried alive, which could, I don't even know, it could be legacy burdens, it could be all kind of stuff that was put on me from my past, that doesn't get in the way of what I'm doing. And so if you're not able to sit with yourself and ask yourself questions or reflect, I have this thing that I tell, when I'm working with my students, I tell them every therapist needs a therapist. Every therapist needs a therapist. That's your check and balance system. That's where you can talk about what's coming up for you in the process. That's where you can discover what's happening with you on the journey, because I think that you're going to be a therapist and your own stuff isn't going to come up as you interact with clients. It's completely ludicrous.
Right.
And if your own stuff is coming up and you're not dealing with it and you're not talking about it, then are you really helping your client heal, or are you actually helping them maintain the status quo and actually transform into who you are, versus helping them transform into who they need to be?
So we're seed producing of our own kind.
Yes.
And we create a congregation, or we minister and produce people to I'm trying to find the right word to pretty much, we're leading people just to the extent of our level of understanding, healing, or ability to cope with whatever the situation is.
I'm gonna make it, you make me think about, I just saw the Bad Boy movie, Live or Die, the most recent one that came out.
Awesome movie.
And in that movie, his Will Smith's son.
Don't get the movie away, but go ahead.
Will Smith's son is able to take them through a series of steps and a series of survival because of what he's been through, right? If he hadn't have been through that,
he couldn't show them.
He couldn't show them, and they wouldn't have made it.
Right.
Right, and so it's all about how am I making sure that I am what I need to be to help people get where they need to go. But again, it's another reality that we have to recognize that some people don't want to hold. Is sometimes I'm stagnant.
Right. Because you made me think of ministry as you did that, right? Do you feel that people in ministry have similar issues?
Totally. You know, like, think about what people will preach on, what people will talk about, what people will lean into. It's based on my own level of the willingness to be uncomfortable. You know, a lot of times, am I inviting people in to be entertained? Am I inviting people in to be changed? Do I recognize that entertainment is very affirming? When I want you to change, it's going to be disaffirming. So I'm not going to get the same pride and ego boost from giving you an entertaining message, something that feels good, something that scratches the surface, versus giving you something that's going to cut you.
Can I get an example of something that's disaffirming?
Disaffirming. Someone telling you change your lifestyle.
Okay.
Your lifestyle isn't lining up. I don't care how long you know this person. I don't care how long you've been using this to cope.
And do you feel that some pastors feel that they run people away when being too transparent?
It's a difference between being judgmental and being transparent. Right? So I definitely think you run people away when you provoke shame and
Gotcha.
guilt. But I think when you just call something out, you do what you want with it. It's my job to call it out.
So is it kind of like preaching the word, but not saying, hey, you, John Doe, you're having the issue with such and such? Or is it seeing somebody come in with a certain sexual affiliation or a certain past and saying, y'all, such and such and such and such? I mean, can you
The
give...
only example I can give that's coming to mind right now is I'm thinking of...
That's condemning.
I'm coming. The only example I can give is I'm thinking about my grandmother's church, right? And I remember as a young girl, there was a young lady at the church who, for years, she was really active, really involved, and she ended up being a teenage mother.
Gotcha.
And so one of the things that in love they asked her to do is like, we can't put you up front no more.
Speak up.
They said, we can't put you up front. Like, right, like you were a role model. We wanted the little girls to be like you. We had you mentoring little girls. And now we're going to have to ask you to take some time away and really reflect on what happened. And we're still going to love on you. They still let her come to the church. They helped her, like they still did the things, but they no longer allowed her to hold this place of what other people were striving to.
Gotcha.
Right? The opposite of that is where they kick the little girl out. Nobody, you bad. You done sinned. We don't want to talk to you. You need to go somewhere else. We're not giving you space to have grace.
Gotcha. Or mercy.
Or mercy.
That was a very good example, because at some point we do have to take ownership on how we lead people. And when we lead people with poor examples of the standard, then we don't have standard. And the Bible is full of standards. Jesus is the standard. No matter what religion, there are standards or principles that we all strive. We all fall short of them. Let's keep that very transparent. We all fall. I fall. She falls. We all fall short. But the goal is not to put a broken image to be the standard, especially with young minds. And I think that was so critical because there's so many imprints on young minds now that don't give, that just says it's okay to be whatever, that's not to a standard of excellence or edification or the principle which we all can meet in certain capacities. And what I mean when I say that, I'm saying we're not perfect. If you're a workout person, you're gonna eat a Twinkie at some point. You're gonna eat something that's off the trail of the recommended diet. So, and I'm not giving us all an excuse to fail. It's just saying we're all human and we're all going to fail. I think I've elaborated on that enough. All right. Thank you. I got one question. How do you feel about the trend in relationships where there are several educated, successful in business or trade ladies out here and dating guys who may not be as affluent, accomplished, or what have you. So there's a lot of change in the dating. From 70s, 80s, 90s to now, where it's a lot of ladies who are more of the breadwinners now. What do you feel about this dating dynamic or shift?
You would ask me that, huh?
I'm just asking.
I think the piece that I'm toying with, that the thoughts that are going through my mind as you ask me that, is this idea of what is success, what is exposure, and how do we define that, right? And so what I hear you saying is we have a generation where, due to all sorts of things within our community, particularly within the Black community, injustice, juvenile justice rates, legacies passed down, parents and now we have a generation where women have been exposed to many more different, you might as well say, educational, cultural, just experiences than Black men. And how does this work when a Black man and woman come together? I think that's what I'm hearing you asking me. Because it's through our exposure is what I tell anyone, exposure dictates income. What I've been exposed to, or who I've been exposed to, who I've been connected to, dictates what my income can be. And so what you're asking is what happens when people with different exposure levels come together.
Thank you for cleaning it up. Go ahead.
I think, and I'm really talking myself through this as I'm saying it. I think what happens is, at the core, it becomes a question of, can we grow together? Can we begin to have or embrace exposure together? It's humbling for both parties because it's gonna feel different. Someone's gonna feel like, why you don't already have this, or you should know this, or oh my God, you didn't know what to wear to this or that kind of thing. Or you don't have, what you mean you don't have your passport?
Yeah.
And so where the other party is like, wait a minute, I ain't used to, you just dropping, like, what are you doing? You shop too much. Why are you buying all this? You know, and I think it's two different lifestyles. So really what you're actually trying to do is to be in relationship with someone means to say, I was living like this, you were living like this, and we're going to find a way to exist somewhere in the middle. And so I think the problem becomes when there isn't a willingness to find the middle, and there isn't a willingness to see value in finding the middle. If I only value what I feel like is success, taking the trips, doing this and doing that, then I'm not going to see value in what you may see as relaxing. Let's just go spend a day at like a Jeju or somewhere. And that's good enough for me. That's my escape. That's my vacation. Then you're trying to force somebody to fit into your box, or you feel like they're trying to force you to fit into their box, versus we're actually creating a box for us to coexist.
With that, great, Trent, great. I love that response. Now, let's get even deeper. What about respecting? So I have this understanding that if you're not in a relationship, you can't heal. Well, you can't grow on relationship issues. I don't want to say you can't heal from it, but I definitely want to say you can't grow in relationship areas. Does that make sense?
I mean, it totally makes sense because as a trained therapist, the therapeutic relationship is what allows the healing process to take place.
Gotcha.
And so relationships, in being in relationship, is what allows us to create or destroy, to nurture or to heal. You know, we can consume. So it's in relationship that we learn the key things that we need about ourselves. We get things reflected back to us. We recognize our patterns. But if you're not in relationship, then you never interrogate that. So you stay the same.
So my follow-up is, as we work out the nuances or uniquenesses of I like to travel, I like to stay home, I like to make a church, I like the small church. Go through these nuances, right? Go through these differences that can be celebrated, tolerated, or frustrated. At the core of male-female dynamic. I don't know anything other than this, so I'm sticking in this area of thought. In the male-female dynamic, do you think it's more difficult for a more accomplished female, despite the color barrier, to submit to a less accomplished male who is able to bring to the table, who brings peace or other things that are not highlighted around financial offerings in the relationship?
I'm gonna say, as you age, it's harder to submit to anything.
Okay, I got you.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, at a certain age, if we think about it, like, we're looking at people are entering and beginning to really think about, you know, life plans at like 30. I got a load of, I'm responsible. I know how to handle my own business on my shoulders. Versus when people were marrying younger, it was, we out here figuring this out together. Don't nobody know what they doing, right? And so for me, it's almost as if you're asking me to throw away what I know and trust what you know. That's hard, right?
Right.
And then you're asking me to throw away what I know and trust what you know, but I'm seeing some stuff and I'm like, male or female, right?
Right. Do you really know what you know?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so I think the key thing in that is just this recognition that the coming together we might have to go a little bit slower because I gotta trust your knowing. And in trusting your knowing, I also gotta be willing to let my ego go. Because a lot of it, the reason I trust my knowing is because how the world has affirmed me.
That's powerful. Say that again, please.
A lot of the reason I trust my knowing is because of how the world has affirmed me, either through awards, through jobs, through stuff,
through salary,
money, right? Like, so I've been affirmed. And coming into this and being in a relationship with you might be the first unaffirming experience I done had.
How can you lay out what, because everybody just doesn't understand the trust process. How does one build trust in a relationship?
You know, it's funny because I think about the dynamics of group therapy. And when I think about that in group therapy, you come together as a group, you have your normalization process, right? We come together and we find out how we're all similar, we get along, you know, our similarities, and you're like, yeah, I'm so glad I'm in this group. You know, think about when you join a team, you know, you play football, your football team. When we first started coming together, we're like, yeah, we go to the same school, we're from the same neighborhood, like, you know, you went to my elementary school, like all the things, right? We're getting excited because we're seeing all the things that are similar about us. And after you move through that celebration of what we see as similar, y'all start not liking each other, right? Like there's a stormy. Like, I hate you. Like, what are you talking about? You ain't on your time. Cause they ain't doing. You ain't. What are you doing?
You know, you missed your tackle. You know, you ain't throwing the ball right. You ain't catching the ball. Yeah.
And then there are moments where someone's like, well, I'm just going to carry the team on my own shoulders because I don't trust you no more.
Which creates a wearing out of the person carrying the load. Some negativity, the person not doing anything because they should be doing something, but they just weighing down the team.
So in that, build trust is see how we're similar. So we should have a good foundation and know I can trust you because we have a good foundation. Now, relationship life, you have a good foundation because I know that you are who God sent to me. So regardless of how we're storming, I can be intentional about how we're forming. So instead of saying, I ain't going to trust you no more and I'm going to take this team on my shoulders and I'm going to do my thing, I can lean in and I can say, okay, how can we work together on this so that I can my trust with you?
Can we take one area and walk through the trust building? Just one area. You
pick.
Diet.
Okay. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching you as you articulated to me how much you desire to lose weight.
But you not eat cookies.
Say it one more time for the people in the back.
But you eat cookies. Because you upset because of whatever the...
If I'm unable to see that yes, you are self-medicating and you are overdoing it with the cookies, but I can't see that there's any improvement. Maybe you come to a place that instead of encouraging, I'm nagging, I'm shaming, then we're not building trust.
It goes back to the condemning, like in the church.
If I'm provoking the guilt from you behind you doing that, then get the trust, and I've made myself a ruler over you, and I'm like, you ain't nothing.
And you also made yourself a trigger for me to go back and medicate some more.
Yeah.
And that even goes in, I mean, not even in relate, maybe with raising kids, right? I think I'm a better parent than you, whether co-parent or in the same house parenting, step parenting, whatever it is, right? It's like the same thing. There can be two different ways to get to 4. You want to do 2 times 2 to get 4. The other person want to do 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 4. But we still getting the 4.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one person may be impatient and want to get there faster without formulating the steps to it. And the other person could be like, well, I'm just trying to help the child formulate these steps so they can graduate. And this is.
But then it brings that there is no trust. See, trust means I value your process. Right? I value your process. So even if my process is 1 plus 3 gets the 4.
Right.
And yours is 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, I'm okay with it. Because I just want us to get the 4.
And I even take that further and say trust the process, or not trust the process, but value the process, or even valuing the person. Valuing the person enough to say, I can respect the difference that we have. I can respect that there is something different, but at the same time, just because I'm going this way about it, it doesn't mean you're wrong or you're an enemy because you're doing something different. Because a lot of times in relationships, it's like if you're not doing it my way, or if you're not on my team, in my eyes, right? Because if I'm not doing it your way, I'm not on your team. So we become enemies in a sense, and we forget that this is a person that I said I want to be in a relationship with. This is a part of growing beyond self, creating that unique oneness that never existed because you and I are in relationship versus whoever the ex person was that you may not have gotten over, or the hurt, not even the person, maybe the hurt from that person that you never got over. You know what I'm saying? And it kind of opens up a whole Pandora's box of issues because I refuse to value the person and celebrate their difference, even if I don't agree with the difference.
Mm-hmm. But why do you have to agree with it if we recognize that everybody's process to get on their journey is different? We say everyone's different, so everybody's process should be different. The only reason we won't value it is because we've made ourselves a god.
Ooh. I'm sorry, you should pull the body slam on that one. Can you say that one more time?
The only reason we don't value other people's processes is because we made ourselves a god, so we can pick it. We believe that we have the right to pick and choose what someone else's process in life is supposed to be.
Wow. Do you feel a lot of relationships are suffering from that idolatry?
I think a lot of people are suffering from idolatry. I think that's why we're seeing the problems we have with our kids.
Definitely. And you brought me right to where I wanted to be. Thank you. So, Genesis 1:11 through 12, we are producing seed of our own kind, whether in parenting, whether in ministry, whether in counseling. And you don't have to be a mental health counselor to counsel people. You can be an auntie, a teacher, a coach, a friend, somebody at work. We're all shining some type of light. We just have to decide how bright and effective our light will be. Or we walk in the darkness, or just blatant, I don't want to grow up. So this is one of the best messages from Growing Testimonies today. Thank you, Dr. Coco, for your wisdom, wise to me. And we're signing off. May God bless you in your journey of healing, helping, and shining a bright light. Let your light shine.